Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling off? Not angry, not devastated, not even able to explain it, just unsettled. Like something didn't land right inside your body. Nothing dramatic happened, no shouting, no obvious insults, no scene, and yet your mind keeps circling back like it's trying to solve a puzzle you didn't agree to. You replay what they said. You replay what you said. You check your tone, your facial expression, your wording. And then, almost without realizing it, you start wondering something dangerous. Was it me? Did I misunderstand? Am I being too sensitive? Why do I feel guilty when nothing even happened? That moment, right there, is often the first quiet signal that you may be dealing with a narcissistic dynamic. And I want to be clear, this isn't about turning everyone into a villain. This isn't about diagnosing people online, and it's definitely not about blaming yourself for what you didn't know. This is about pattern recognition, because the most damaging narcissists are rarely obvious. People imagine narcissists as loud, arrogant, attention-hungry, constantly talking about themselves. But many of the most controlling narcissists don't look like that at all. They can be calm, polite, reasonable, helpful, even charming. They don't always dominate the room. Sometimes they do something much more subtle. They dominate your internal world. And the clue isn't what they say. The clue is what happens to you afterward. In this video, we're going to go through 3 silent signs you may be dealing with a narcissist, especially the covert or socially skilled kind. Not the flashy red flags, not the pop psychology labels. These are the patterns that show up in your nervous system, your thoughts, and your emotional life over time. And the third sign is the one almost everyone misses because it doesn't feel like control. It feels like connection. Let's begin. Silent sign number 1, you feel confused after interactions. One of the earliest and clearest signs of narcissistic dynamics is persistent confusion. Not confusion about facts, confusion about yourself. Here's what it looks like. You're in a conversation with them, and in the moment, everything seems normal, maybe even friendly, maybe even productive. And then you leave, and suddenly your mind starts spinning. You can't shake the feeling. You can't name the moment where it went wrong, but you feel unsettled, like you've been subtly pushed off center. And then the second guessing begins. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe I imagined the tone. Maybe I'm just stressed. This confusion isn't random. In healthy communication, even when it's hard, you tend to walk away with clarity. You might feel sad, frustrated, disappointed, but you can usually say, okay, that's what happened. Your nervous system can settle because the emotional reality matches the words. In narcissistic communication, there's often a mismatch. The words sound harmless, but the emotional impact hits anyway. It's like they deliver an emotional punch while keeping their hands behind their back. They communicate through implication, a look, a pause, a strategic joke, a compliment that has a hook inside it, a question that isn't a question, more like a setup. Then, when you respond to the emotional message, they act like you're irrational. They say things like, I was just joking. Wow, you're sensitive. I didn't say that. That's not what I meant. You're reading into it. You're making things up. And what your brain tries to do, because your brain is a meaning-making machine, is resolve the contradiction. Your body felt something real, but your mind is being told nothing happened, so your system stays activated. That's why you can feel mentally exhausted after interacting with someone like this. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing extra labor, reviewing the conversation, searching for the mistake, trying to predict what will happen next, trying to prevent the next confusion. It becomes a loop because there is no closure. And here's the part people need to hear. Confusion is not a personality flaw. It's often a signal that the communication environment is unstable. When someone repeatedly leaves you disoriented, doubting your memory, or unsure of what's real, that isn't just a misunderstanding. It's a pattern. Healthy people may disagree with you, but they don't consistently make you doubt your own perception. So here's a grounded check-in question. After I interact with this person, do I feel clearer or cloudier? If the answer is cloudier most of the time, pay attention. That's your first silent sign. Silent sign number 2, you're always adjusting yourself, and you don't even notice. The second sign is quieter. It doesn't show up as drama. It shows up as adaptation. You begin editing yourself. Not because they told you to, not because they demanded it out loud, but because your nervous system learns it's safer. You start thinking before you speak. You choose your words like you're diffusing a bomb. You avoid certain topics, not because you don't care, but because it's not worth the fallout. You soften your opinions. You explain yourself too much. You add disclaimers to everything you say. I'm probably wrong, but maybe it's just me, but I don't know if this makes sense, but... And here's what makes this sign so important. You're doing it automatically. It's not a conscious decision, it's conditioning. Because narcissistic dynamics often involve emotional inconsistency. On one day, you express a need and they act supportive. On another day, you express the same need and they get cold. On one day, they praise you. On another day, the same behavior annoys them. On one day, they want closeness. On another day, closeness makes them withdraw. So your system starts scanning them the way people scan weather. Is it safe today? Is it stormy today? Should I be honest today? Should I keep it light today? This is why people in narcissistic dynamics often become hyper-attuned to microsignals, the tone shift, the sigh, the facial expression that lasts half a second. Because when the environment is unpredictable, the nervous system becomes a surveillance system. And that constant monitoring has a cost. You start orienting around their emotional state instead of your own internal truth. You stop noticing your needs because you're too focused on managing the atmosphere. And something subtle happens over time. You become smaller in your own life. Not because you want to, because you're trying to keep peace. But peace in a narcissistic dynamic is often purchased with self-erasure. So here's a question that cuts through all the overthinking. Do I feel more like myself around this person or less? In healthy relationships, you don't have to perform emotional gymnastics to maintain connection. You don't have to shrink to stay close. You don't have to rehearse your sentences like you're in court. Yes, you might compromise. Yes, you might choose kindness. But you shouldn't have to constantly contort yourself just to avoid emotional consequences. If you notice you're always calibrating, always accommodating, always careful, pay attention. That's not being mature. That's a sign your body thinks honesty is dangerous. And if honesty feels dangerous in a relationship, something is wrong with the dynamic. Silent sign number 3. Their approval feels rare but powerful. This third sign is the most overlooked and the most addictive. Because it doesn't feel like control, it feels like hope. It feels like relief. It feels like, finally, there you are. Narcissistic dynamics often involve intermittent reinforcement, long stretches of emotional distance, neutrality, or subtle criticism, interrupted by moments of warmth, praise, affection, attention, validation. And when it happens, it doesn't just feel good, it feels big. It feels meaningful, like you finally earned your way back into connection. And your brain remembers it. This is how emotional dependency forms, not through constant affection, through inconsistency. Because when approval is unpredictable, your nervous system becomes hyper-focused on earning it. You start trying harder. You tolerate more. You overlook behavior that would normally feel unacceptable. Not because you're desperate, because your brain is wired to chase uncertain rewards. This is the same mechanism behind gambling addiction. When rewards are random, the brain stays engaged longer. You keep pulling the lever because the next win could happen at any moment. So you may find yourself thinking about the person when they're not even around, replaying the good moments, looking for the version of them that felt safe, hoping that if you just choose the right words, the right mood, the right timing, you'll get that connection again. And here's the truth most people are afraid to say out loud. You may not be attached to who they are consistently. You may be attached to who they are sometimes. That doesn't mean your feelings are fake. It means your nervous system is responding to unpredictability. And this is where people get trapped, because the rare approval becomes proof in their mind that the relationship is real. They think, if they can be that sweet, they must love me. If they can be that present, the connection must be there. If I can just get back to that version, everything will be okay. But rare warmth doesn't cancel out chronic instability. In healthy relationships, care is steady. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's reliable enough that you don't live in a state of craving. You don't feel like you're chasing crumbs of validation. So here's a powerful check-in. Does their approval feel like a calm nourishment or like a drug that hits after withdrawal? Because if it feels like a hit, like relief, like you can finally breathe again, that's not intimacy deepening. That's conditioning. How these three signs work together, the loop. What makes narcissistic dynamics so powerful is that these signs don't exist in isolation. They stack. They reinforce each other. Confusion keeps you doubting yourself. Self-adjustment keeps you quiet. Intermittent approval keeps you invested. Together, they create a loop that can be hard to see from the inside. You feel off. You blame yourself. You try harder. You wait for approval. You get a moment of warmth. You feel relief. Then the fog returns, and the cycle resets. And because nothing is overtly abusive, you start questioning whether you're even allowed to feel uncomfortable. You are. Your body notices patterns long before your mind can label them. If you consistently feel drained, smaller, anxious, or unsettled around someone, listen to that information. It matters. Not as a dramatic accusation, as data. A gentle reality check, if you recognize yourself. If you recognize yourself in this, pause. This does not mean you're foolish. It does not mean you attracted this. It does not mean something is wrong with you. It means your nervous system adapted to a confusing emotional environment. And adaptation is what humans do, especially when the relationship matters. Especially when it's a parent, a partner, a boss, a friend group, a sibling, someone you can't easily walk away from. When your brain senses that connection is unpredictable, it will try to earn stability. That's not weakness, that's biology. But awareness changes everything. Because once you can name the pattern, you stop internalizing it. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start asking, why does this dynamic feel unsafe? That shift is powerful. Because narcissistic control depends on silence. External silence, where you don't confront it, and internal silence, where you don't trust your own perception. But once you hear the pattern, you can't unhear it. What to do with this information? Practical, quiet steps. You don't need a dramatic confrontation to begin reclaiming your clarity. Start smaller. Start safer. Here are 3 quiet moves that help you regain your internal footing. 1. Start documenting patterns, not arguments. Not to build a case, but to stop your mind from rewriting reality later. Write down what happened, what was said, and how you felt afterward. Over time, patterns become undeniable. 2. Practice naming your internal truth privately, even if you can't say it to them yet. Try simple sentences. I felt dismissed. I felt anxious. I felt confused. I felt like I had to perform. This reconnects you to your own signals. 3. Notice the cost of contact. Some relationships energize you, even when they're challenging. Narcissistic dynamics often deplete you. Ask yourself, after I interact with them, do I feel more grounded or less? You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for whether your nervous system can relax, because safe connection doesn't require you to shrink. Take a breath. If you've been confused, that doesn't mean you're broken. It means your system is signaling that something doesn't add up. Confusion is not a flaw, it's a signal, and signals are meant to be listened to. So remember this: healthy people may disagree with you, but they don't repeatedly make you doubt your reality. And if someone consistently leaves you feeling foggy, careful, and hungry for approval, that isn't just communication style, that's a dynamic. And once you can see it clearly, you can start choosing yourself again, quietly, steadily, and without apology.